What is going on, guys? Jack here, and welcome back to episode number 116 of Park to Prem here with Tower Town. Today we have got our annual end of season review. Season number 13 is in the books. Perhaps the most memorable season of the series so far. I feel like this year was a bit of a coming of age. We've turned a corner as a club, and I'm now sat here thinking, we are one of the big boys, we can hang with the big dogs, and I hope that we can build off this year. Before I get into that, I do want to just quickly say a massive thank you. If you watched yesterday's video, you'll know that I talked about the GoFundMe page for Tower Town. They were looking to raise £2,000. I actually contacted the club over the weekend and said, hey, you know, I have a series where I play as your football club in Football Manager. They seemed a little bit perplexed by that, and I kind of explained, you know, we have this really cool community. There's people all over the world who are familiar with Tower Town. I think we can make a difference. And I said, you know, we'll try and get you close to the £2,000. I didn't think we'd actually get there, but I thought if we could get, you know, £1,000, absolutely amazing. And well, between the efforts here by all of you watching and also the wider Tower Town community, the club is very close at the time of recording to £4,000 raised, more than double their target. So a huge thank you to anyone who did get involved. If you shared it, you didn't even have to donate. If you did anything towards it, thank you. If you didn't and you couldn't, you know, because you couldn't afford it, whatever, I understand as well, of course, but really cool to see. It's so nice to be able to make a difference. I got a lot of messages from people saying, you know, Jack, you're really nice for doing this. And honestly, I would like to think that most people in my situation with the platform that I have would do this for Tower Town. I think it's something really cool to rally behind. And yeah, you guys have surpassed my expectations for what I thought was possible from the community. It's been crazy. So thank you to each and every one of you. And thank you for being back here watching this series. I feel like 116 episodes in, you're somewhat invested at that point. I've got you on the fishing line. I've reeled you in. And, well, let's talk about this season, shall we? So, first year back in the Premier League. We had a not-so-brilliant first year in this league, but when you look at the league table now, it's a little bit hard to believe, isn't it? 5th place, only 4 points off the Champions League spots. Now, I know, and this always happens, I get the YouTube comments whenever I lose one game or slip up, you know, slightly, you know, maybe lose to Liverpool 2-0 like we did, and people say, your tactics are rubbish, you need to do better. I don't think we could have played any other tactic and done any better, folks. We were predicted to finish 17th this year. We didn't have a massive budget. We still don't have a massive budget. I will say that I am hoping that our wage budget and transfer budget are going to be pretty hefty this year. But, you know, going up this year, quite different to our first year in this league, but nevertheless, we have the second lowest wage budget in the league, which is still double what we had last time, but it was always going to be tricky, wasn't it? This was all about making amends. We'd had a year in the Championship, a year where towards the end of it, we'd come up with a new system, which I was hoping was going to work in this division. And to be honest, when you look at the team, there wasn't actually that many players we signed for this season. You know, the expectations at the start of the year for me were just avoid relegation, just don't repeat history. I did feel like, you know, deep down, probably should be pushing on a little bit more, and top half was kind of the thoughts in the back of my mind. But obviously, the way this season's gone has been pretty crazy. What's really stood out to me, actually, is the fact that we didn't really beat any of the big teams too regularly. I think we beat Man City once 1-0, and that was kind of it. When you look at the kind of games that we won and lost and stuff, the games that we lost are the ones you'd expect to lose for the most part, you know. I guess away against West Brom and Southampton you could look on with some regret, but on the whole, we didn't throw away points against too many of the teams that we need to be beating. That was kind of the big difference maker this year. And one thing that really stands out to me, actually, just looking through these results, is the sheer quantity of clean sheets. What a crazy season it was, just defensively. We've never had a season like it. I know when people look at this system, they think it's going to be really offensive. I think it's worth remembering, you know, the complete wing-backs, they are going to drop deep. They are going to form back part of a back four. The way that we play out from the back, both of our centre-backs are set to stay wider. They split. Highland then drops into the gap and really acts as a, well, the playmaker, obviously, but in a quite unique way where he will actually offer some defensive coverage. And Highland, actually, this year definitely deserves some credit for just what he did for us this year. A bit of an unsung hero. I feel bad because I am already thinking ahead to next year and thinking I might play Leskinen at deep line playmaker because he has improved a lot in the playmaking areas, and he probably is a better player on the whole, which is quite necessary because I think it is almost, well, one of the most important aspects of our system is that deep line playmaker. They really make the team tick. But no, Highland's been huge. And just on the whole, it was a bit of a team performance. I know I talked about this before, and Shvetsov really went off towards the end of the year. Shvetsov and Turnbull getting 45 goals between them. Charlie Brown with 11, GCL with 10. The assists as well, just... I mean, it was just quite a unique year where, for the first time ever, our squad felt really, really well balanced. And we weren't, leaning on 1 or 2 star players to make magical stuff happen. Obviously, in terms of the transfers we did make, Leskinen and GCL were, I guess, the big additions, as well as Charlie Brown, who... I mean, build him a statue, folks. Build him a statue. A player who I would love to give more first-team football to next year. It's kind of funny, you look at Charlie Brown, who's got 7 goals in 21 this year, and then you compare it with someone like Ricky Williams, who, well, I love Ricky Williams, don't get me wrong, I'm giving him a nickname and everything because I can't remember his name. But he scored 4 goals in the last 2 years. He's made 14 appearances this year. Yes, a lot of them have been off the bench, but when you compare him to Charlie Brown, one of them is performing, one of them is not. His value is now £20 million. We signed him for £3 million. There is definitely a temptation to just kick Ricky out, and I know not everyone's going to like that, but I am quite brutal when it comes to stuff like that. But anyway, in terms of the transfer business we did, obviously GCL turned out good towards the end of the year. I think Leskinen had a very solid year as a box-to-box midfielder, played in every single league game. That's usually a sign that someone's been pretty important. Also averaged above a 7.0, which for a centre mid that isn't a deep-line playmaker ain't hugely common in Football Manager, so I was very happy about that. Of course, a lot of these transfers in were punts for the future. I guess Soretta... Maybe Soretta would be transfer of the year. £170,000 paid for him. He made 8 starts towards the end of the year, and I feel like at this point we have to just accept that he's nailed on to be our starter for this season. But yeah, those were the dealings that we made on the ins. Of course, on the outs, we didn't really need to sell anyone either. It was a case of just selling a load of scraps. The players who were never really going to play for us regularly in the first team. And we really made some good money off that, and that is something that we are going to look to continue to do. Obviously, throughout this year, we have continued to look to sign youngsters for the future, from all over the world. There's a nice variety, a few Scandinavian and Nordic players in there that I'm sure people will recognise. There's players we've talked about before, players in Germany, for example, a few Austrians, I think there's a Swiss player in there. And this is part of the long-term plan, getting these players in. I'm sure you'll become acquainted with some of these when they do join. I am still thinking about bringing back the Academy, which if you can't remember, I did it for... I didn't do it for Leon Live, I did it for Socio, and I've done it for another series as well. The Academy is basically a series where I dedicate an hour or so, it kind of depends on how long it needs to be, but basically just running through the youth players at a team, talking about how I'm training them, the ups and downs, giving you some of my thoughts. That is a goal that I have on Patreon, where when we hit a certain amount, we'll bring that back. Because it is something that does take quite a lot of effort, but I feel like we are getting to a point now where it might be kind of useful. There's quite a lot of players here. I guess if I was going to pick out one, I'd pick out Markovski as the player to be excited about. He's been on loan at Northampton this year in the Championship, developed a ton, looks really good. To me, he looks like a centre-back rather than a left-back. It's a shame about his heading. But yeah, keep an eye on Sasso. I think he's the man to think about. But of course, yes, this year we finished 5th. We got to the FA Cup final as well, which was pretty heartbreaking. But on the whole, it was just a really memorable season for so many reasons. You can see here the overall best 11. Man, there's some great names in here. We've got DKM out on the left, Kumwenda on the right. Of course, Kumwenda still in our under-23s, as are Shuttleworth and Andre Dazelle. Jimmy Norris at left-back with DKM. Who are these guys playing for now? Southport for DKM. Norris is playing for... Oh, that's love. I love that. They're playing together. Oh, they always had a little link on the left. So I love the fact they've gone to the same club together to hopefully relive those days. Of course, the likes of Hugo and Ronnie Williamson still there. Can I see... I mean, it says... Does it say anywhere, like, where these players are now? I imagine a lot of them are retired. The Postman's retired. I know Warrington's retired. Zach Gannon, are you still around? No, he retired after a brief spell at Leyton Orient. Morrigan's made it onto the bench. It'll be a weird day when Smolyo is booted out for Morrigan, won't it, in the best 11. Oh, you can see the best 11. Where are they now? So if you were curious about any, they're all here. I'm going to leave it for you guys to have a look through, but I think we covered most of them. End of season awards. This is where things get tasty. So, drama. Fans Player of the Season by 4% of the vote is Dylan Turnbull over Shvetsov. Ooh, I can hear the oohing coming from the comment section already. I mean, what do we think of this, folks? Who would your player of the season be? Who would you have? You know what? I'd probably have Dylan Turnbull. And Dylan Turnbull's got some flack in the comment section because I know he does miss the odd one-on-one. I think what can't be understated is just how many goals he does score for us. If you play Football Manager, you'll know most players do miss one-on-ones. It's not an uncommon thing. Obviously, the fact he's averaging 0.68 goals every 90 minutes is really, really impressive. Has a better shot on target ratio than Shvetsov, albeit by 1%. Wins more tackles. That's kind of to be expected, I guess, as a pressing forward. Although Shvetsov, when he makes his tackles, he does them correctly. Both cover a lot of ground. An average rating, 0.2 in the favour of Turnbull. But yeah, you can let me know, folks. Who would you have had as your player of the year? Who is the better player now? Maybe that's a more loaded question to ask you guys. I think Shvetsov has the edge still for me, but I do love them both equally. And they've both got 6 years left on their current contracts, so long-term planning there. Shvetsov got goal of the season with West Ham. This is going to take a little while to load sometimes, so while this happens, worth noting that third in those player of the month, player of the years was Highland. So the AI, the fans, they know, they understand the importance of Highland in our team, which does make that whole idea of dropping him a little bit more tricky, I suppose. I'm trying to think who my player of the year would be this year. It's a bit boring, isn't it, for me to say Dylan Turnbull? I mean, Shvetsov probably edges it in the second half of the year. That was when he really came alive. But I think I would give it to Turnbull or Highland myself. I think it has to be Turnbull because I think he got early goals for us in the year when we really needed them. Football Manager is as indeed is real football, is very momentum driven. If you can get some wins to start the year, that usually is going to carry you quite well. And I do feel like Turnbull got us a lot of really important goals in games earlier on in the year, even if he fizzled out towards the end, that kind of paved a way for us to perform throughout the year. Anyway, let's have a look at this Shvetsov goal of the season. Was it worth waiting for it to load for? West Ham, by the way, relegated with West Brom and Swansea City. I did have a peek at West Ham's team. They've got a really old squad. In fact, you'll probably be able to tell it's an old squad by how many real players here you'll recognise. So they might really struggle to bounce back, West Ham, because yeah, their team is not getting any younger. Themselves and West Brom, very established Premier League teams in this save game. Swansea, they've been a bit of a yo-yo club. They came up with us last year via the playoffs. Kind of expected them to go down. I'm trying to think of who else I'd put in my player of the year. I might put Soretta in there. Late bloomer. I mean, maybe Soretta would be my surprise package. Because I signed him for £200,000 a couple of years ago, and I kind of just forgot that he was joining when he turned 18, and then he turned up and he was really blooming good. So yeah, I think I'd have Soretta as my surprise package. And most improved, ooh, I mean, it has to be Andre, right? I think Andre or Soretta again deserve it. Are we going to load this? I'll continue to do my awards while we stall. But yeah, I think Andre for me or Soretta would be my most improved. Matasevic, though, really did make a good improvement as well. Right, was this worth waiting for? Shvetsov picks it up, takes it past one. Is he going to finish it? I mean, right, well, I'm glad we didn't wait 5 minutes for that or anything, because that would be awkward, wouldn't it? But yeah, I think surprise package for me, well, not surprise package, sorry, most improved for me would probably be Andre or Soretta. I really like Soretta. It's such a shame he's inconsistent and he's not the most technically astute player. If we just look at his development since he joined us at the club, you can see here he's only been at the club since last July. Very, very impressive performances. I think he almost certainly has to become a regular starter going forward, and he's only 19 years old now, recently turned 19. He's either-footed, he's a perfectionist. You can see here he prefers to be on the right in a two-man pairing. I think he can play on the left as he has done for us this year because he is either-footed. Also listed as a wonder kid with a lot of potential. I think he might be the rock to build behind. I know a lot of you have been mentioning in the comments, Jack, you need a new centre-back. Don't necessarily disagree with that assessment, but I do feel like we need to make sure we don't block a pathway through to the first team for Soretta this year. Because I do feel like Douglas gets a lot of poop thrown in his direction. People don't give Douglas the respect he deserves. He got a 7.11 average rating in all competitions this year. 7.09 rating in the league. Played 35 games of our season. That is a very, very impressive numbers. I know it might not look the most impressive, and I feel like when you look at him, you go, well, he's not got good, great aerial ability. It's easy to look at this, but I think what you have to look at is just how mentally switched on he is, how good he is actually at getting in a tackle. Really well-rounded physicals as well. And he is still listed as a wonder kid, and whilst he might not have the same potential as Soretta, I do like them as a pair. I feel like they've got some chemistry to build off. Of course, both played together in the Brazil youth national teams as well. Anyway, in terms of clubman for the year, the player who served the club the most well, you know what, I might give it to Matasevic. He made 6 starts in the league this year and 25 appearances off the bench, and he's the example of a player who hasn't been given a load of opportunities in our first team. We've loaned him out a couple of times and he's really grinded it out. And then after a good year last year in the Championship where he got 11 goals, he's joined us. And you know what? He's not had the craziest of seasons, but he's improved a lot. And I'm now looking at him, looking at the fact he's now a natural centre mid, thinking, yes, you've got something about you. You could be here for the long haul. And yeah, I think as far as homegrown talents coming through, he is second only to Dylan Turnbull in terms of what we've produced in our time here. 2 players who have made that journey right through the youth team, now playing regular first-team football, which is great to see. Anyway, we'll go through some of these other awards. I've still got my disappointment of the year to go through. If you've got an idea for the disappointment of the year, get it in the YouTube comments. I know I'm asking for a lot of comments with different opinions. Leave a new comment every time. YouTube comments are good for the algorithm. Just feed the algorithm for me. I realise some of you won't know what that means. YouTube, it's like there's a black, dark heart to YouTube. And if you leave lots of comments, YouTube goes, people really like that. They like talking about it. And I know you guys like talking about this series because I see you tweeting me and messaging me on Discord all the time. So, yeah, get involved. I want to hear your thoughts. It's really interesting to read through different perspectives. We have some really good chats on the WorkTheSpace Discord, which you can find a link for in the video description, about the save game. I always find it interesting. People have been discussing what I should be doing this summer. And I love just seeing the variety of opinions and contrasting opinions. But it's really interesting just to see how many people have such an intense interest in this save game that they have, you know, these ideas going around. And, you know, there is stuff that I read and I go, hadn't thought about that, really. But yeah, that does make sense. Anyway, Charlie Brown got signing of the year for £7 million. I mean, fair play, Charlie. The fans love you. Shvetsov, he wins Young Player of the Year. He's 23 and he's now in his 4th full season at the club. Yeah, 4 seasons at the club. Always got double figures. Some pretty impressive numbers here. But can you really call him young player at this point? At 23, it feels a little generous to me. Anyway, our season review, we finished 5th. Lost in the final to Man City. I feel like I really need to make it clear. Man City are like the big bad wolf of this save game. They are the team to beat. They won the Premier League this year. They're in a Champions League final. They already beat us in the FA Cup final. Did they win the EFL Cup? No, they actually lost in the EFL Cup. But they are on for a treble this year. They're quite good. They were predicted to win the Premier League. So the fact that we lost to them in the final, I don't feel like there's that much shame in it. We did score against them. Apparently our match of the year was our 1-0 win on the first day of the season. Well, we peaked early, apparently. I mean, I could pick about 15 other games, but we'll go with that one. Moment to forget, apparently, the defeat that we had against Chelsea. We sold out each and every week, which is absolutely incredible. Unfortunately, I've not had the option to request an expansion to our stadium. You will notice here our training and youth facilities are on the upgrade. But yeah, I can't expand the stadium anymore. And the way Football Manager works is you can't request a new stadium until your current stadium is 20 years old. Unfortunately, our stadium is currently 3 years old, but I do think we might be at the maximum expansion capacity of 15,000. Now, I myself can't ask for a new stadium to get built, but my understanding is the board, if they evaluate it all, they can just come to me and say, hey, we've realised that we need a new stadium, we're going to build one in under 20 years. But if that's not the case, we are going to have to wait 20 years and be playing at the same stadium for a while, which, I don't know about you, might get a little bit cosy because we're already filling it every single game week. Anyway, we only used 22 players this year. That was quite a compact squad. Of course, that's going to be the big transition this coming year. We've gone from being a team that didn't go far in the EFL Cup. We went far in the FA Cup and the Premier League, but we didn't have too much distractions. To next year, we've got to be ready to fight in the Europa League. We've got to be ready to fight in the Premier League. We're going to be playing games far more frequently. You can expect next season to have a fair few more episodes per season because there's going to be these big European nights to enjoy. But yeah, as a result, you know, we weren't truly tested. I do think that lack of European football played into our hands, and I have to be mindful of that next year, realistically speaking, 5th probably isn't going to be doable. I think some people have this idea that I'll just be challenging for the league next year. I'm going to be playing twice as many football matches next year. The reality is that it's going to be quite a challenging season. If we could get top half next year and go through, say, the group stage of the Europa League, that'd probably be a successful season. I don't actually know what the board expectations are yet, so we might find out about those in a second. Anyway, in fact, club expectation, right on cue. Thank you very much, Alexander. You've planned this perfectly. So, board expectations, they want mid-table next year, and then the year after that, they want a top half finish. In the Europa League, they expect us to reach the quarter-final. I mean, the gauntlet is set. They are laying it out in front of us, what they expect. But you know what? I'm all right with that. We will just accept that for what it is. I can tell the players a little meeting. Let's go for a mid-table finish. Look at that. They love it. There you go. Tricks of the trade. Just listen to your chairman's expectations. Apparently then the players will agree with that. Holiday camp. Where are we going on holiday? You know what? We're going to the USA again. I like the trips to the USA. Get to visit all my favourite places in the States. I say that like I've been to the USA a lot. Been to Florida once. Stayed in Miami. I was there for 3 weeks. Did 2 weeks in Orlando, then a week in Miami. And I actually think I preferred being in Miami to being in Orlando. Just nicer. Anyway, enough of Jack's tourism tips. Although if you're planning a trip to the USA, maybe go to Miami. Of course, you're not limited to Florida. You don't have to be like me and just go to the touristy place. I hear there's some places on the West Coast that are okay as well. Can't speak for myself. Anyway, I've gone way off topic here. Let's talk about my disappointment of the year. Who am I throwing under the bus? The Throwing Under the Bus award. I mean, I can't give it to Volta, can I? Who would I give it to? Can I just give it to Sonny Best? Thing is, because I've only played 22 players in the first team this year, there's not really been anyone who's not, played badly. I guess if I'm going to throw anyone under, maybe Ricky Williams. Didn't have much of a chance to prove himself this year, but when we did give him opportunities, he got goals in cup competitions against lesser opposition and never really did it in the Premier League for us. I guess Pizarro, honourable mention. Yeah, you were disappointing, weren't you, mate? Still doesn't have a work permit. He's on £66,000 a week. Should point out on that note, I think I may have mentioned this yesterday. If I did, I apologise. I'm just blanking. We have got a new affiliate at the club. Can we get an ooh? An ooh for the ooh, new affiliate. So we have Crew, but we've also got Kukariki Stankom, who are a Serbian team, and this is purely for work permit. So if a player plays for Kukariki for 3 years, they'll get a work permit. So we've got that planned. As a result of doing that, I am adding in the Serbian Football League so that the players that we loan out to this club will actually play full, proper matches in a league that's fully simulated. I don't actually know if that makes a difference, but to me it feels like it does from my own experience. So who knows? Maybe we'll peek over at Kukariki and see how they're doing with various youngsters that we have. But in our ongoing quest, I guess, to further expand our academy and just sign a load of players for cheap and try and make some money off them, we now have the option to ship them off to Eastern Europe for a few years to get nationality in Serbia, which is absolutely fantastic. So, what else have we got to go through? Team and player overview. Now, we've already talked a little bit about the player overviews, but, this year, things have been interesting. I feel like we've lent on Dylan Turnbull and Shvetsov a lot, but obviously Charlie Brown's done his thing. At centre-back, I think the big thing is Douglas, Soretta, Maggi. What do we do there? What do we do there? Because Maggi, to be honest, is a very, very good kind of backup centre-back to have on the bench for this level. Apparently he's listed as only having championship quality, which I think is an absolute joke and a bit of a disservice to him. I do like Maggi a lot. As I already said, I feel like Douglas and Soretta might be the play. And I know some people are going to expect me to go out there and sign a big new centre-back. I'm sat there thinking, do I really want to spend money on a centre-back? Is that something that I desperately need to throw money at with these two youngsters coming through? I feel like if the right option's there, sure. But one thing that I have really been experiencing and noticing is that teams just want a bucket load of money for players that aren't actually that big of an upgrade on what we already have. Obviously, we didn't actually spend any money this year. The current transfer budget, if you were wondering, is £46 million with a lot of wage budget free. We have 140 million in the bank. I'm already thinking about some players that we might look to shift on. I don't want to name any names, but I am looking at CC and Rodriguez, who have a combined value of 38 million as players that we should probably be looking to sell on. Unfortunately, Diakite, you might remember Diakite. He's not had his name said in a while, but he's another player who we might look to sell on. Lars Dunkler, at 21 now. Can we really expect him to develop? I don't think so. He's valued at £6 million, an ambitious personality, not really done it in the Championship this year. I think there's quite a lot of money to be made there. I feel like we should be pushing realistically, I want to say, to a similar sum of money to last year, which was about 70 or 60 million pounds. If we could do that again, that would be great. Obviously, that would free up a load of transfer budget. In terms of what I want to do, when I look at my first team, where do I want to strengthen things? I feel like I need to solve the Highland problem. I've talked about playing Leskinen potentially as the deep line playmaker. I am still really tempted, and I'm now not going to be able to find him, by the Brazilian lad who we looked at previously. I've tweeted out about him, so some of you will know. He plays for Sao Paulo. I definitely typed in Sao Paulo there, and it just got rid of it. Can we... Thank you, Football Manager. Please load. Yeah, Matheus Aurelio. I really want this guy. He has a release clause of £20 million, or £22 million. Our scouts have been recommending him like crazy. If I got him, you might think, well, Jack, what are you going to do with Lazarus? Fantastic question, because he's actually been very good this year. I think we might end up playing him as a box-to-box midfielder. Now, he's not the craziest box-to-box midfielder in the world, and in many ways, he's a bit of a Greek James Milner. You know, that centre mid who can do a utility job at right-back when need be. But actually, as a box-to-box midfielder, sure, he's not perfect, but I think he could still do a really good job there. Of course, this year, he's done very well for us. 6 assists, 3 goals, £12 million well spent, it's looking like. At the time, it looked like a bit of a risk on a player who I considered a punt, but I feel like that punt has come off. Interestingly enough, actually, I was looking at the hierarchy before I started recording. He is actually one of our team leaders already, alongside Morrigan and Shvetsov, which I absolutely love as a trio leading the club, to be honest. And in terms of social groups, you can see here, there's a few players in secondary groups, including Jamal Lewis, who I'm probably going to sell on because he's on 50 grand a week and he's just complaining every other week about lack of first-team football. But no, we do have a really good core social group. So there is that other argument of, do I really need to sign more players? Do I really need to throw more players into the mix? Like, could that cause more issues? But you can see here, actually, the following recommended players have been scouted and are recommended to fit. And Matheus Aurelio is listed there as a player who would just fit into the first team. So if I'm going to sign anyone, he'll just slot into the social group straight away anyway. I'm a little bit concerned, actually, about the amount of Brazilians we have. I would like to get more English players in the club. I kind of view us as a bit like Wolverhampton Wanderers with Portuguese players, except we're obsessed with Brazilians. In this save game, Brazil just have some absolutely nuts, youngsters. We've seen it through the various years that we've signed numerous Brazilian players at this point. You kind of look at someone like Andre. We signed him for £13 million as a championship club. He's now valued at £21 million and looks absolutely great. I'm okay with maybe signing Matheus Aurelio, but I would be a little bit kind of, I don't want to say uncomfortable, that's not the right word, but it would feel a bit weird and a bit odd, I guess, signing too many more Brazilians, I should say. I would like to get into more English players, because I do look at the likes of Shuttleworth, Molyneux, Walton, who's retiring at the end of the year, Mannion, who probably needs to be moved on. We've got some older English players here who I'm kind of keeping around because some of them do help out with the homegrown status stuff. But we only need 4 players homegrown at club. You can see we've got 5 currently, and if I'm not mistaken, Douglas is going to be homegrown next year. So maybe it's time to wave goodbye to some of these. Oh, that would be a bit heartbreaking, wouldn't it? But I do look at someone like James Molyneux. Do I need Jimmy Molyneux anymore? I mean, he probably needs us more than anything, but he's never going to play for us again, is he? Did a great job for us back in the day. For £71,000, we're laughing. At one point, he was valued, I think, at close to 10 million, so it feels like a shame that we didn't sell him then. But he's the kind of player who can move on. I feel like I'd have a harder time moving on to someone like Shuttleworth because he's homegrown at club, and that is kind of just useful to have. On the flip side, we've got players like Matasevic and Turnbull who are homegrown at club. We've also got Douglas, who's going to be homegrown at club. There's some really oddly regular first-team starters who have that status. Very often when you rocket up through the league, you don't have many players in your first team who, generated at the team or were brought to the team at a young age and so are homegrown, whereas because of the way that we've gone up and down and yo-yoed a little bit, we don't have that to worry about, which is kind of useful. I guess that's a silver lining of the fact we got relegated. But yeah, in terms of general squad building, I would like to get into more English players. I have been looking at the English youth teams because I think realistically we can't really expect the first team to do great things for us. I'm thinking still about signing Deacon. We've agreed with Manchester United a fee of 20 million. I do wonder if I could get him for a little bit less, but I do like him, and I think if we train him to play left wing back, he could be the perfect second choice left back and right back option on the bench for us. But yeah, I have looked through this team. I mean, you can see some of the players who got scouted here. There's a player like Darcy Jones, who I'm a big fan of. I think this guy could be really, really good. He's 18 years old. How much do they want for him, you might ask? They want £37 million. I'm just sat here shrugging now. This is the issue I've got. I think I would love to bring in way more English players, because we do, if we just saw our our youth team here, you can see we do have some English players in our ranks who could actually end up being quite good. You know, 3.5 star in our team is as good as Andre. You know, actually Andre's 4 star, but close to being as good as Andre. Better than Soretta is now. So, you know, there is plenty of room for these under 23 players to join. But alongside all the, you know, various other players we've got coming in, I definitely would like to start adding in more English talent. So don't be surprised if I do go and spend a load of money. The dilemma I've got is, do I go and get someone like Darcy Jones you've just seen for 37 million, or someone, you know, slightly better even for a little bit more? Or am I better off getting one £60 million player or 61 million pound players? You know, sometimes you can hunt out some really good youngsters in League One, in the Championship, before the asking prices get too astronomical. In some ways, that feels like it might be the necessary way to go. Of course, with all the money we're swimming in, we could afford to splurge it, but I feel like I've been very, very sensible with my transfer dealings, and so to just kind of shrug my shoulders and go, screw it, we're spending 80 million on an 18-year-old English player who may or may not make it. I mean, I can be reckless at times, folks. It's even a little bit reckless for me, I'm going to be honest. But anyway, team stats is something I do want to talk about a little bit, because I do feel like, you know, our success this year has actually come down to a few different factors. One of them has been goals. We have the joint 5th most goals in the league. But if we look at, you know, just, I mean, you can see here, we're a dirty team, but we do complete a lot of our crosses into the box. That's a big factor. You kind of look at the percentages here. With our system, we obviously use our complete wing backs. They are the players that put in the crosses. In terms of the instructions that we have, obviously we do look to overlap, we do look to put balls into the box, but very often I'm asking the players to play low crosses, and, you know, to work the ball into space, like, slowly, you know, short passes. I want to keep things simple. You can see a pass shorter, shoot less often. I want my players, when they're in those narrow angles, where they might be tempted to shoot, to actually square the ball, and I think that is something that, you know, has been rewarded this year. You kind of look. Lazarus has got 7 assists, Ox has got 10. The crosses from our wingbacks have been very good this year. We don't actually put in that many crosses compared to some teams, but they are, you know, still a pretty big, you know, deciding factor behind our success. In terms of pass completion, we're not that high on here, really. You know, 14th with 80%. Possession isn't something we really pride ourselves on. It's more where we have possession. We still have above average possession at 51%, but so much of our game, you know, just revolves around having a really solid defensive shape and a willingness to build out from the back. And because we're a smaller team, the big clubs, and indeed most teams in this league, because of our reputation, they view us as a team that they should be beating, that they should be spanking. And so they come to our backyard and they press really high, and we play out from the back really well around that press, and we're able to abuse the teams with so much space in behind. I did want to have a quick look at reputation, because I feel like it's something that we've obsessed ourselves about over the years of being here. I'm now trying to remember how I get the team reputation stuff up. Where is it? Oh, it's clubs. Clubs in the list. We'll get there eventually. It's not often I get lost in Football Manager, but I will hold my hands up and say I got lost then for a second. But yeah, you can see here, actually, our rep is rising. It's above Swansea's now, and considering last time we got relegated, it was on par with MK Dons down here. It's definitely an improvement. And of course, being in Europe next year is only going to make that reputation go higher. It's only 3.5 star, but, you know, I would suspect in the next few years it's going to be up to 4 star, 5 star. I mean, you can see here Watford finished 12th. Theirs is 4 star. We're actually not that far away from West Brom, although I think theirs will have dropped with them being relegated. But no, we're certainly starting to overcome a problem that we had when we were first at this level, which was just couldn't really attract anyone. That has kind of gone out of there. I mean, I'm still struggling with it in real life, but in Football Manager, we're doing absolutely fine. Anyway, I did talk about the, you know, the average attendances and stuff. That's definitely just worth mentioning here. So you can see highest average attendance, we are bottom. We didn't have the lowest attendance of the year. Take that, Bournemouth, because we play good football. You can see here that we fill our stadium every single week, 19 sellouts, it's only 14,800 fans turning up, but when you compare that to the days where we would take free away fans to certain grounds, it's quite a good improvement. In terms of goals, you can see obviously we're joint 5th here with 72, which in 38 games is not bad at all. In terms of goals conceded, 41 conceded, that might be close to our lowest ever. Now, I know we play less games in the Premier League, but considering the situation we find ourselves in, that is really, 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 really impressive. I'm very proud of us for that, actually. In terms of chances created, we create a lot of opportunities. In many ways, we probably do miss more than our fair share of chances, but we create a bucket load. In fact, when you compare it to a lot of the teams around us, it's amazing how far ahead we are in that regard, considering our lack of possession and our perceived fewer passes compared to a lot of the teams around us. You can see a lot of these teams, their passes are, massively inferior to ours. But it's what we do with the ball when we have it, not what we do when we don't have it. And of course, we have got in our back pocket our secret weapon that is this system, but also our set pieces. Our throw-ins this year have been very, very good. I haven't made these public yet. I don't want to show them too much. I will be, by the way, making this tactic available to Patreon supporters at the $5 tier this coming month. So there's a few things I want to experiment with still with this, just in my own time. But this will be available soon. It will then be available for all of you in a couple more weeks' time. So, keep an eye out for that. If you want to get it early, I will obviously mention on the Discord server that I'm on and on Twitter when it's available for Patreon supporters. But it's just a little thing that I want to give back because I'm pretty impressed with this system. I've obviously only tested it here. I've not tested it with any other clubs, so I would be very curious to know what can be achieved with a really big team with it, and also down in the lower leagues where players aren't quite as technical. But yeah, I feel like the system as a whole and the set pieces, the long throws and stuff have worked this year. It's something I don't often touch with Football Manager because I feel like, I don't know, there's a weird thing where I almost feel bad if you set up a throw-in thing and it just gets a lot of goals. It almost feels like you're cheesing the game, but at the same time, it's not like we've had more corners, for example. I know throw-ins aren't checked, but it's not like we've scored more corners than, some other teams. There's some AI teams who have scored more corners than us. We've been good from our corners with the routines that I have set up, but it's not kind of a game-breaking way. Some of you might remember, I want to say it was like FM15 or FM14. There was like a near-post corner thing you could do where centre-backs would be getting 15 to 20 goals a season. Nothing like that really exists anymore, at least to my knowledge, and certainly not that I'm using. But obviously I have, spent a little bit of time with set pieces. This pre-season, this year was actually one of the first pre-seasons in many, many years where I just sat watching the set pieces just to tweak things as we went on. I think we've got some pretty good stuff going on here. Of course, my highlight of the year is beating Brandon 23-0. Not getting 5th in the league, not getting to the FA Cup final. This match was where we peaked, and no one can tell me differently. Anyway, I have already looked at the dynamics and hierarchy at the club, so we will just have a quick look at the club overview, which, as you can see, obviously, Dylan Turnbull is listed as our key player. Makasevic is listed... Oh, Makasevic, I'm just mixing up Matasevic and Markovsky. Why is that difficult? It's not difficult, I'm just incompetent. But is listed as our hot prospect. If we look at the general info, you can see here, Kumwenda, Dazel, Shvetsov, the space. Legends. I think Shvetsov is actually a new addition there. Sonny Best is now an icon alongside Stewart and Dylan Turnbull, who is quickly climbing the ranks. And further down here, we've got Shuttleworth, Molyneux, Mampala and Warrington. One thing actually that people have mentioned, and well, it's two things actually. Firstly, season ticket holders. We only have a stadium capacity of 14,800. So pretty much all of our home fans are just season ticket holders. Also, our season ticket average price has always been really high, even when we first joined the team. I don't know why it's high. I guess it's just set in the database that I'm using, but I think it's the same for most lower league teams. But yeah, worth noting that we do actually make some quite good money. I believe it's some kind of pyramid scheme that Alexander Mutkin's got going on, where he has some Russian billionaire friends who pay, a massively inflated price for their season tickets to invest money into the club, and as a result, it drags the average up. That's my theory. I'm not going to say anything more on it. I don't want to get the club in trouble, but I think it could be a factor. Of course, our facilities are going to be upgraded, but we've still got exceptional youth recruitment, exceptional academy coaching, state-of-the-art data analysis facilities is great. And of course, these facilities are going to be upgraded almost immediately. You might remember it earlier on this year. We got the improvements to 3.5-star and immediately were begging for them to be upgraded once more. Anyway, in terms of other stuff, I've talked about the fact we are going to load in Serbia. One thing that a lot of people have been asking about is World Cup winners, Golden Boy winners, that kind of stuff. So I'm going to quickly just flick up stuff here that you're going to be able to look at. I'm not going to deep dive into it too much because I feel like you can pause the video if you to have a look at it. I'm trying to remember what the World Player of the Year is called. Is it World Player? World Cup Best? That's not what I want. I want to look at the Ballon d'Or winners, but I've not got a real name fix installed, to my knowledge. So Ballon d'Or, I do have a real name fix installed. Kylian Mbappe won it 6 years in a row. Martinez, Harry Kane got it a year. Belotti got it a year. Belotti for Liverpool, interestingly enough. Fabio Silva, who's a Porto youngster, did it. Fati got second. If you're wondering how good Fabio Silva is, he's pretty blooming good. And, well, most recently, the first regen to win it, Alexander Ferreira, who is a 27-year-old Belgian forward for Barcelona. So there you go. I know lots of people asking me about that. In terms of best under-21 players, Shvetsov actually won it one year. I feel like I did mention it. Mike Frost has won it back-to-back years. First with Stuttgart, then with Man City. He's 20 years old. He's 20 and he's this good. It hurts. I'm going to be facing this guy for the next decade or so. Maybe I just need to buy and sell enough players that I can just buy this guy off City. He's pretty blooming good, isn't he? Apparently, if you signed him, you'd make £4.3 million in marketing revenue off him. Don't think that's going to cover the kind of transfer fee that would be required. But yeah, those are the World Cup winners. And then I will just have a look at the European Championships, which England are the holders of. Croatia have won it, and Spain have won it, and Champions League we'll have a look at as well, which, again, you guys are going to be able to have a big, deep look at, but I'm just going to quickly flick it up. If you see anything interesting, let me know. It is worth noting that for the first years of the save, because I only had England selected, there is a much higher chance that English teams do well, because more recently, if we just look at add and remove leagues, we've added in the likes of France, Germany, Italy and Spain. The European competitions are going to be more competitive now. It will be more difficult for us to do well at it, and you can already see in the 3 years most recently, there hasn't been an English team even make the final. So that has already started to make a little bit of a difference there. But anyway, guys, that's going to wrap up everything from me today. Again, just want to say a massive heartfelt thank you for your support with the Town or Town GoFundMe. I know the club really appreciate it, and it's testament to how much we can achieve when we all work together towards something, and it was really cool to be able to coordinate it. But of course, I can only do so much coordination. Ultimately, it's you guys that do make a difference. Yeah, I think that's all from me. Tomorrow is going to be a rest day, so there will probably not be an upload. There might be an upload now that I think about it. There will be an upload. It won't be a regular Park to Pro episode. How about that? That's a promise. I mean, you can go on Twitter and find more out about that, I think. But yeah, that is going to be all from me today. Thank you so much for watching as always. Really do appreciate your ongoing support. I will see you again soon. It is me, Jack, and I will talk to you guys in a bit. I'm out.